And so as I walked in this morning and saw this, sign that said, "Celebrate wins and learn from losses," honestly, I think I had ignored it a couple times as I'd walked past earlier last night and as we were preparing, but I sat with it for a second. And I recognized that actually celebrating wins and learning from losses could be seen as a slogan, a sort of trite, throwaway catchphrase. But actually, in my life as a first-generation college graduate, celebrating wins and learning from losses was what got me through some of the hardest moments of my life. I think celebrating wins and learning from losses is actually this answer to the question, how do we create equity in post-secondary access and success? When I was in high school, I was in a truancy program. So I'd missed more than 50 days of school. I basically was on a path to nowhere, not graduating high school on time, let alone any sort of post-secondary education. I had a social worker who fought like hell for me to get me into my dream school. I got into NYU. And I was incredibly proud. I thought I had made it. I thought I had built a new branch on my family tree, only to arrive at LaGuardia Airport and realize that I didn't have enough money to get from the airport to the front steps of NYU. Turned around, came home, same day. I had a moment where I had to both honor how hard I worked to get there and how that in and of itself was a win. But I also could not accept that loss. I had to confront it, but not accept it as the norm or as acceptable for students like me who fought as hard as I did to get the education that I deserved. It's easy in a moment like the one we find ourselves in to be triggered, right? Triggered by the data, triggered by FAFSA, by the fact that we're trying so hard, but it seems like every one step forward, we get 2 steps back. I've learned that you get much further faster in equity work when you pay attention to glimmers and not triggers, when you look for the bright spots, when you look for the things that are working and replicate them, right? Shine a light on them. This room of 900 people, you all are the glimmers that I needed today that I didn't know I needed. And I hope that the energy that I am receiving from you all is something that you can take with you as well. I'm really honest with myself that it is inspiring to see a group of people who are deeply committed to our young people's desires. And yet, I think it's fair to say we haven't cracked the code on exactly what to do with that deep commitment. I love this data that's coming from ECMC. I love it as an educator, but I love it even more as a mom of a junior in high school and a freshman in high school. So they surveyed thousands of high school students and saw that 86% of students think about their future path at least weekly. 52% of them think about it every single day. 78% say it's important or very important to have career plans determined when they graduate from high school. I love this data as a mom because it just makes sense, right? I talk to my son every day, and sometimes he's anxious. Sometimes he's excited. Sometimes he's sad, right? He's thinking about this future life for himself constantly. And yet, there aren't real spaces typically in his experience in school where he gets to work through all that he is carrying as a junior in high school. So this complementary data is that 57% of the students said that they had 5 or less conversations with high school teachers and counselors about their post-high school plans. Only 8% at the point of graduation felt fully prepared to make the decision of what to do after high school. 8%. Right? The gap between what our students are asking for, what they desire and what they need, and what we're providing is vast. There is some good news. I work at OneGoal because I've always believed that the simplest answers are the best ones. I didn't need someone to reimagine my life as a truant student in order for me to pursue post-secondary. I needed a caring adult, Mrs. Jeter, who sat me down and had several consistent conversations with me about who I wanted to be in the world and how I would get there. That's it. And I think sometimes as educators, we get this privilege where we over-intellectualize and we make everything academic and we need a 20-point strategic plan with PowerPoints and caring adult, consistent conversations, folks. It's what worked for me as a first-generation college graduate. It's what I continue to see working as an educator. And it's no surprise that the students who are most prepared say they didn't have 5 conversations, they had more than 20, right? 20 conversations with an adult across their high school career. Equity in education is in some ways right in front of us. A caring adult who can help you see in yourself what you maybe can't see yet. Who can help you ask those practical questions of what do you want to be when you grow up and how do you get there? Right? Our kids who are least resourced do not have the luxury of complicated post-secondary planning supports. They want to know some answers to some basic, fundamental questions. And they deserve to have a caring adult who's going to help them answer them. I'm realistic. I'm not delusional. When we think about 20 conversations with young people across 4 years, I understand that our schools are not set up to execute on that. They're not designed to support young people's holistic journey to adulthood. Right? We see these statistics about the average student getting 38 minutes of advising, the counselor-to-student ratio 464-1 nationally, and now it begins to feel like an enormous challenge to give students these sort of basic, I would argue, humane responses as an educator. But if we pause for a second and we actually hold on to a little hope and imagine that it's possible for every student that we are responsible to feel affirmed, engaged, and supported in reaching their greatest post-secondary aspirations, if we just pause and think about it, we start to get ideas about what it might look like to actually transform our institutions to serve that end. For the last 17 years, we've been doing work at OneGoal to really narrow in on what are these small number of things all schools could do to better serve their young people. 5 things, not 100, 5. Right? We've continued to build our evidence that if schools have coherent and shared vision for post-secondary success, as Steve shared, there's a common goal that they're working towards. If there are data systems, if there's exposure to clear pathways, transition supports, if we're embedding frequent advising into the school day and training a diverse group of educators to do that, not leaving it on the backs of a few incredible counselors, but every single adult in that building who has a relationship with a child, if they felt deeply responsible to ensuring that that student feels confident and future ready, what a different world we would be in. We're starting to see that that's actually possible. This school Proviso is literally in my backyard. I used to play against Proviso when I was in high school at Morton West. And OneGoal's been partnering with Proviso for the last 3 years. And just in 3 years, we've seen, even with all of the FAFSA debacle that we discussed, we've seen FAFSA completion increase by 10 percentage points. We've seen high school graduation increase by 5.5 percentage points. And I know nobody's here because they're excited about our students graduating from high school. But like my grandmother used to say, when you shoot for the moon, you still fall on a star. All right, we're seeing all of these high school outcomes increase, attendance, high school completion, as a result of just helping our students believe that they can be something when they grow up. One of our young people gave me a little bit of a sort of punch to the gut when we surveyed them and asked them about their experience after being in a OneGoal classroom. And he said, before this, I didn't know people cared about whatever I was going to do after I graduated. But now it's like, okay, so they do care, and they actually believe it's possible for me to be successful. This broke my heart. I was a classroom teacher first before I did anything else. I promise you, our classroom teachers care deeply about what happens to our young people. But the way in which we're interacting doesn't necessarily suggest that that's the case. We need to put action behind our words. And that means embedding real conversations, practical conversations about our young people's future every single day. As often as they are thinking about it is as often as we should be doing it. I have to acknowledge that this work is happening already in Michigan, and so thank you for continuing to bring this work into your schools and into your home. And for those of you who maybe aren't on that list yet, or aspire to start to make progress one step at a time, if you have to start somewhere, start with your belief. Start with some shared beliefs in your schools, in your organizations, in your nonprofits, that students deserve to feel future ready. It's simple, it's measurable, it's attainable. Do you feel future ready or not? We deserve to provide our students educational opportunities that are core curriculum, not some extracurricular luxury that happens maybe after school or when you have time, but core to what it means to go to high school. And we need to acknowledge that advising is everyone's responsibility. And the best person to do it are the people who have real relationships with students. We cannot do it alone. Now, trust me when I say I feel humbled that I get to follow Steve and Carmen. These educators don't just talk about it, they are about it. And I know that I will find the energy and the spirit I need to continue to move forward by listening to our incredible educators in this room and taking the most practical, often simplest next steps and listen to our kids. Thank you.